Thank you so much, Kim.
I invite you to find a comfortable position. Turn the mic on. I invite you to find a comfortable position with your feet on the floor and your hands gently in your lap. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. Breathe in, God is. Breathe out, I am. There is only the one. Focusing my attention on my solar plexus, I silently affirm. I shine a yellow light like the midday sun through the region of my solar plexus. I bathe my solar plexus and the area around it with the brilliance of divine wisdom. I never need to worry about knowing the right thing to do. I do not judge by appearances, but by right judgment. I do not rush to conclusions, but discern the way to go. Everything I need to know is within me. I can trust my aha and uh-oh wisdom moment by moment. I discern through divine wisdom my deep inner sense of direction. I trust and follow my inner voice of wisdom. I rest easy, centered in spiritual integrity. I am true. I activate the power of wisdom in my body, mind, and spirit. I assert wisdom to live in the heavenly state of harmony, peace, and well-being. My tuning to divine wisdom blesses me and all others. I am the divine power of wisdom, wise. Focusing my awareness above my brow and inward to the front of my brain, I locate the physical site of spiritual understanding. I shine the light of understanding, precious golden threads, throughout my frontal lobe, cleansing my brain and clearing foggy thinking and misunderstanding. By the power of understanding, I learn from my life. By the power of understanding, I learn from the one mind through which I realize eternal truths. I am divine understanding. Focusing my attention in my frontal lobe, I shine the silver light of will throughout the front of my brain, across my forehead, and up to the crown of my head. I clear my busy brain of preconceived notions and all false imaginings. Centered in spiritual will, I affirm my capacity to choose. I affirm my capacity to commit to a path ahead. I will be a blessing. I will live as the light of the world. I affirm my willingness. I am willing. I am willing to remain attuned to the source of all good. I allow light to unfold. I am willing to courageously decide what I will have, do, and be. focusing my attention on the energy center of love within my body and around my heart. I place my hands over my heart while envisioning a soft pink glow emanating from my heart. I call forth the magnetizing power of divine love. Whatever dreams I am holding, I send them through the pink light of love. I call forth from within me the harmonizing power of love. Love harmonizes my thoughts, words, and actions so that I see things rightly and bring about good. I see myself, others, in all conditions through the lens of harmonizing love. I call forth from within me the unifying power of love. I am divine love, unifying my thoughts, words, and actions until I know only oneness. I see myself in others, others in myself, and God in us all. For I am one. I send out from within me the pink life of love, blessing me and all people in all of life. I am the power of love, loving. As we return to this time and place, wiggle your toes and fingers. And as you are ready, gently open your eyes.
Get my ruler out of the way. The law of least effort. There's a great example about what we want to talk about today, and I found it in a book called The Quest by the Jaffolas. There's a 14-year-old girl whose mother had passed away, and her dad got married in less than a year to Jean. Well, as you can imagine, Karen was angry, and she took her anger out on her new stepmom, Jean, and pretty much made life miserable. She was so very angry, and it got almost unbearable for Jean to the point that she sought out some spiritual counseling because she thought she might have to leave the marriage because of it, because of the relationship that was just deteriorating. Over and over again, they kept going round and round. And she was told when she went for spiritual counseling that she was powerless over Karen and would have to surrender the situation to God. Now, intuitively, she already knew this was true. So she completely let it go. She surrendered. And in that moment of surrender, she said that she experienced transcendent happiness. It just washed over her in that moment of release. She said she let go of this problem that had been consuming her day in and day out for a long period of time. So she goes home, and a few hours later, Karen comes back from school or wherever and is immediately angry. She goes to her room and discovers that her stepmother, Jean, has been in there and stripped her bed and was washing the sheets. And she comes out and starts railing against Jean all over again. And Jean didn't say anything. She was very calm, very collected. And she stood there for a minute. She went over. She was compelled to hug her. Now, Karen wasn't necessarily receptive, but she grabbed on to Karen. And after a while, after she quit stiffening, she began to sob. Karen sobbed. Jean sobbed. They hung on to each other. This went on for a while. And after they quit crying, they sat and they talked for hours and hours. Because you see, what happened was she saw that child as the wounded child that she was, basically like a wounded animal. She was just reacting to the pain that she was experiencing. So what happened was Jean saw her in the truth of who she had been acting out as, right? So she said, the relationship's not perfect, but it's so much better than it was, Jean said. And she will be eternally grateful for finding out about surrendering and learning how to turn over her problems to God. So today, this is our last week that we are focusing on our theme for the month, which is guidance in October. So let's say our affirmation together. God, here I am, guide me. You see, I think this story is so profound for me just because of its simplicity, that Jean simply chose a way to see it differently. She didn't necessarily change her stepdaughter. She chose to see the stepdaughter in a different way, and it opened her heart, you see. She saw it through the eyes of the Christ love within her. Made all the difference in the world. When you act from that Christ center, it's always going to be that loving place rather than her human self that was always reacting just to the anger. You see, there is a miracle working power in surrender, in letting go, of quitting the fighting. And you see, letting go doesn't mean quitting. There's a vast difference between surrendering and quitting. Some people think that surrender sounds weak. You know, like you're giving up, you're not going to try anymore. But actually, surrender is the opposite of that. It is the stronger way. It is how Jesus practiced non-resistance and showed us how to do that as well. Surrendering to the power greater than your human self is really like an admission of an obvious fact. God in you already knows what you need. Already knows the desires of your heart, already knows what forgiveness work you need to do, right? And is ready and willing to help you improve your life, but you have to allow that. So immediately upon surrendering, what happens is magical solutions come to the forefront. Because what? Because you're tuned in and tapped into spirit, and now you're receiving those divine ideas. And this gives you a real sense of peace. So in looking for something about guidance in the 100 Years of Daily Word, which we're celebrating all year, I found this wonderful thing from February the 8th, 1985. The affirmation is, I am in tune with God and right answers come to me. It says, there are times when I strive for guidance and direction so fervently that I actually shut it out. Instead of going over and over the problem, it is well to first get in tune with God. My oneness with God enables me to feel my oneness with the order of the universe and all of life. I am then able to pray joyously and effectively. When I'm in tune with God, I'm at peace. I'm not easily distracted or upset by trivial happenings. I trust God to bring right answers when they are needed and in the way in which they are needed. I set the tone for the day when I affirm that I am in tune with God. Any time during the day that I need steadiness of thought and spirit, I return to my affirmation. When I am in tune with God, right answers come as easily and as naturally as breathing. And that's what we want it to be. We want it to be natural and easy. We don't want to be struggling. And so this law of least effort is the fourth of the laws. We have already done the first three. The law of pure potentiality was the first week. Giving, receiving was the second week. And last week we did the law of cause and effect. So this law of least effort, I want to start today with metaphysically interpreting a scripture. And it's from Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30. You know this scripture. Come to me, all you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So there are a lot of people feeling overworked and weary right now. There's a lot of things people have been going through. And Jesus offered a help to people back in his time. He assured us that those who sincerely follow the Christ way of living will find his yoke easy. As we work in partnership with God, availing ourselves of that Christ love that is in us, that wisdom and that power that is innate in us, he says our burdens will grow lighter, our work easier, and our lives happier. We are living in times when we need to use these spiritual practices. In regards to work, Jesus' words meant apply truth ideas to improve your efficiency and to make your work easier and more interesting and to get better results with no strain, fatigue, or worry. You see, the term yoke was an Aramaic expression, which was Jesus' language, and it meant heavy taxation and burdens. And so often in Jesus' time, when the countrymen were talking about their yoke, they felt unduly burdened, and they complained that their yoke was heavy. So Jesus' listeners understood that his figure of speech, when he said that his yoke was easy and his burden was light, they knew what he was talking about. They knew that he was saying, in effect, you'll be glad when you elect to follow the Jesus Christ way of spiritual understanding and team up with that spiritual power that can be yours through your Christ self. Your work will go better and seem easier when you learn the Christ Spirit work in you, as you, and through you. So make God your chief employer and your working partner as well, and you will be prosperous, happy, and successful. Well, when Deepak opens up this chapter on least effort, he immediately goes first right off the bat to nature, the effortlessness of nature. So the effortlessness is that there's no resistance. You don't see the leaves on the trees holding on like, I don't want to let go, I'm going to fall on the ground. You don't want to see that. You don't see in nature anything showing any resistance. Everything does everything the way it's supposed to be done in the right and perfect time, exactly as it should. And so he uses that as an example. He said, it yields to the seasons. It trusts. It lets go. And when you do this, it becomes the principle of love and harmony. And when we learn how to apply this law in our lives, we can also easily more fulfill our desires that we have in our hearts. Because when you truly know who you are, when you know that you're a spiritual being having a physical experience, you know how powerful you are, and you understand least effort is expended when your actions are always motivated by love. But you know what happens to us? Our human ego gets in the way, doesn't it? When we get into trouble, it's because we're trying to make things happen, either because of money or for personal gain, or we just know something needs to be a certain way and we want it to be this way and we're intending it to be this way and we're seeing it, we're holding it, you know. We don't care what God has in store for us. We know what's best for us, and we're heading in that direction. And you see what happens when we do that is we essentially cut off the flow of good in our lives by being in that personal will, using our strength in that way. But when we're motivated by love, our actions are amplified and simplified. Our ego, you see, tends to drain our energy, and it's not an efficient use of it. So to understand this fourth law, we want to look at the three components that Deepak says encompass what this law of least effort is all about. And the first one, it's a big one, acceptance. If we start our day, just imagine that we started our day saying that we're going to accept all the people, all the situations, everything that unfolds today, no matter what it looks like, we're going to accept it for what it is. We're going to take it at face value. No matter what it looks like, no matter how we show up, we're off to a great start, because basically this acceptance is about principle one in unity. If God is all there is, it's all good. And it's unfolding the way it's supposed to be for us, because God is omnipresent always. So if that's true, why do we question things that come up in our lives? Things that, especially that we don't like. Why do we struggle against things that pop up? The fact that we struggle means that we're not trusting in divine order that's supposed to be unfolding for our highest good, and that there isn't a learning. We don't think that there's a learning. There's a learning in everything. You may wish for things to be different in the future, but in this present moment, you need to accept what is happening, what is as it's supposed to be. So you see God in everything, and you expect God in everything. Eckhart Tolle, in The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment, said this: accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. Make it your friend and ally, not your enemy. This will miraculously transform your whole life. So the second component is responsibility. I know some of you haven't liked that word since you became an adult. You don't really want to be responsible, but what this means, this word in this particular context for this law, means not blaming anybody for anything, and that includes yourself, being graceful to yourself. So if you've already accepted the situation, and then you have this ability to have a creative response to it as it is in the now, because the now moment is all that really matters. It's the only place that we have our power. So you see it as an opportunity instead of as a problem. You see the difference? You just, as Jean did in the story, you just tweak it just a little bit. Instead of dealing with a tyrant, you have a teacher. You have a new teacher, right? I know some of you are thinking, I've had lots of teachers, thank you very much. I don't need any more teachers in my life. But honestly, you're breathing, you're going to get some more teachers. So you might as well be ready for it. So it's all about how you interpret what is unfolding and what is going on, isn't it? It's all about how you see it. How do you perceive it? How do you show up with that? Say this: this moment is as it should be. This moment is as it should be, because you never know the hidden meaning underneath all of the events that are unfolding in your life. Each and every single thing that happens to you is part of your soul's evolution. And we shouldn't question it, right? Are you with me? Yes. Are you ready for component 3? Yes. Defenselessness. Okay, now we got to be vulnerable on top of The first two, acceptance and responsibility, now we have to be defenseless. So the part of this law is that once you've accepted it and you've taken responsibility for whatever it is that's showing up, there's no need to convince or persuade other people of your particular point of view. Do you know people in your life who are constantly giving you their point of view about something, constantly trying to tell you about their candidate and why they're voting the way they're voting, blah, 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 blah? When you are in this component of defenselessness, you understand that you don't need to defend yourself with anything. And what's going to happen is you're going to gain an incredible amount of energy by not doing what we normally would do, is try to convince someone that we're right. Our way is right. So when you do these three components, you basically don't meet any resistance in your life. Life is calmer and smoother and easier, because it's when you force outcomes, when you try to make things happen the way you want it to be, is when we struggle, and that's when we waste a lot of energy trying to build a case, right? Trying to build a case about why we say what we do, why we think what we do, and why you should believe the way I believe. So you don't want to be like a rigid, tall oak. You really want to be more like the palm trees. You know, in the wind, you want to be able to flex and bend with the wind and come back into position. You don't want to be to where your limbs will crack off when the wind blows. So if you have no position to defend, you're not allowing a birth of a new argument. You're not allowing it. So you're in a more peaceful place. And you're sustaining your energy in a much better way as well. I love the word allow even more than the word surrender, because it's letting go of that human struggling and admitting our personal powerlessness, and it brings a rush of help to us, like a miraculous rain flooding a parched desert. It's like, this is great. The Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh said, every breath we take, every step we take, can be filled with peace, joy, and serenity. But you see, it's up to us to do it. And I know this stuff works. I was confessing to my prayer partner this week about that I need to practice what I preach, because I've struggled for 4 weeks with my water filtration company not coming out and fixing my water system. And I'd been complaining about it. We've been praying about it. And I finally said, you know what? I just got to let it go. I just got to let it go. It is what it is, right? And so we prayed about it. Now, you can't make this stuff up. An hour later, they called and said, we have your equipment, and we're coming this weekend. So after weeks and weeks and weeks, so this stuff works when you work it. So to have good health, good rich life does not mean to be set free from worldly experiences. It doesn't mean you're not going to have ups and downs because you practice the law of least effort. But it does mean this. It means that you will have dominion over them. You will not be on an emotional roller coaster, up and down, up and down. You'll be riding above that, you see. You'll take dominion over it. Jesus, our way shower, taught us that we need to agree with our adversary quickly, remembering that the adversary is not a person or situation before you, but it's a reaction or a feeling that you're having about it. That's what we react to. So what really counts is what happens in us. Not what happens out here, but what happens in us is what really matters. And using these practices raises our consciousness. And if we accept fighting the process, when we'll have necessary growth in our consciousness. Okay, enough preaching, time for a joke. During a Sunday school lesson, a child learned about how God created humans. And the Sunday school teacher went on to tell about how the rib of Adam created Eve. And so he was very fascinated by that story. And so sometime during the week, his mother found him laying on the floor. And she goes up to him and she said, "Little Johnny, what's the matter?" And he said, Mom, I have a pain in my side. I think I'm making a wife." I love how they interpret things literally. So I'm ending today with, we're studying the gatherings of the few, and this is something that was so profound for all of us when we read this week that I'm sharing it with you because you may not be part of that group. Jim Rosemergy said, "Unless you accept your humanity, you won't be able to express your divinity." For years, I tried to ignore the pain, then change my humanity, heal the hurt, deny the power of negative thoughts and feelings, cast out parts of myself, but now I see it another way. My humanity is to be refined in a fire of love. The work is not change, denial, healing, or purging my humanity. The work is to accept it as it is. Acceptance releases the divinity within. This is one of the greatest discoveries of my life. No longer do I label my thoughts, my feelings, my memories good or bad. They simply are. Long buried events, thoughts, or feelings are remembered, and they rise into a consciousness of acceptance. That's the way it truly is this day. Namaste.
Namaste.
You've been very good children. Very good children. All right. So now's our time to give from our blessing into the blessing of this ministry. So if you have a gift that you want to bless, whether you've done it through PayPal or Breeze or have it here or you did online, however, we receive it gratefully. Let's say this together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, that this is so.